you are uh, a Canadians fan.
I am. I know.
You have always wanted Patrice Bergeron on your team.
Oh, he would have been such a good Hab.
Can't have him.
I know.
Let's talk NHL. I want to just give you a little bit of background on a guy I spoke with this afternoon, actually 2 hours ago. His name is Brian O'Reilly. He lives close to the Lambton Shores, I think in Varna. It's a little town close to Godrich.
I know it well.
Okay, well, I don't. The only thing I know about it is there's a community close to Varna where Jack and I bought a washing machine once, and that's all I know. So this man, Brian O'Reilly, he runs a high-performance training center. He's also a high-performance athlete counselor. He's a lecturer. He hits the speakers circuit from time to time. I would describe Brian as a man who, if he lived in the Okanagan, he would be one of those Ramalama Ding Dong, new agey guys. He's wonderful. I'm all about the Okanagan Ramalama Ding Dong. He's thoughtful. He's gentle. He describes himself as an introvert. So these days, with the novel coronavirus, he's happy to be walking with his best friend in the woods with their dogs, avoiding ticks. So I called him today, cold call, reached him in the woods, and I wanted to know what his thoughts were about the future of the NHL. And so he trains athletes, including hockey players. Are you looking at murder hornets or black flies or mosquitoes there?
Black flies have just started. So, and why I looked up is I think I just saw my first hummingbird.
Oh, that's fantastic. Jack just put out the feeders, and but then we had snow. Let's back to Brian O'Reilly. He is the dad of a bunch of adult children. One of his daughters just graduated law school. She just came back from a 3-month volunteer stint in Cambodia. Another daughter who just graduated university. He describes her as a bit of a recluse. So he says she's like me. These times are good for her. She doesn't mind. And then now this is where you'll recognize who Brian O'Reilly is. He's the father of a couple of hockey players, including Ryan O'Reilly, who was the most valuable player in last year's Stanley Cup playoffs with St. Louis Blues. Is it the Conn Smythe? Conn Smythe.
Yeah. And clearly he's held that, he'll hold that longer than anyone else.
You're right. Ryan O'Reilly will have the Conn Smythe trophy in his house for 2 years.
Exactly.
If yours and my predictions hold up.
Yeah.
So I asked Mr. O'Reilly, what's your prediction for the NHL? He likes to talk about things like mindfulness, adapting. And so he started in general terms that there's going to be a lot of adapting that needs to take place if they so choose, if they make the choice, the NHL tall foreheads. He talked, though, specifically about problems with, soup to nuts. He does believe that the league will start up again late summer, early fall, and they'll finish the 2019-20 season, and there will be a Stanley Cup playoffs. He thinks then that the new season will start in the new year after Christmas. We've heard this before, haven't we? This is something that people talked about when they predict what's going to happen. He talked about problems with TV deals, marketing and sponsorship deals. Where are the problems there for the NHL? Who's in, who's pulling out, who's renewing? I forgot to talk to him about all of these new, not that many, but a handful of arenas that are under construction for various NHL teams, and what happens in New York with the Islanders, with the Ottawa Senators, Seattle, Arizona. He talked about the logistics, just the machinations of getting people in and out of big facilities. We've heard this as well. He thinks it's very, very difficult to do that. And tickets for the select few will cost an arm and a leg to get in and out. So that's the lovely Brian O'Reilly. By the way, I'm going to see if I can hook up with Ryan and or his brother Cal, who's a professional hockey player, to find out what their thoughts are. Those guys are both articulate and thoughtful. They were out of the picture today. Brian doesn't like to speak for his sons and daughters. Fair enough. So let's go right to the question. So those are his views, a couple of predictions there. What do you think about the NHL and its future?
Can I do a little kind of
dance?
past
Do a little
and
dance?
future? Yes, a little past and future COVID kind of prediction or suggestion. If I want the NHL to come back with a bang and with a new team, Seattle, I know they're not supposed to come till the next year, but who knows what year or month or anything this is anymore. During the Spanish flu, the Montreal team, they might have been the Maroons at that time. Maybe they were the Canadiens. Anyway,
I'm listening. I have to grab a prop while you tell us.
Okay. So, it's just so weird seeing your pants go through your shirt there. So, in 1918, the Spanish flu. Yes, the Stratford streak.
He was just getting his career started at the time of the Spanish flu.
Yep, and most of the team came down with the Spanish flu. I think there were deaths on the Montreal team.
Only one.
Just one, that's right. But back then, I think that was when people challenged for the Stanley Cup, and the Montreal team had the Stanley Cup, and a team from Seattle was going to challenge them, so that the cup was never given out. It probably would have been 1919. It was never given out. So my hope is when the Seattle team is in, the first game of the season is Montreal against Seattle, and whoever wins that Stanley Cup. That's my little past and future thing. Anyway, okay.
Okay, hang on. You got so passionate there that this is what happened to your mouth and your arms and the audio from you.
Okay. Okay, I will try to keep still and to not be passionate about hockey. It's good. You know what? COVID and all of this Zoom stuff, this is what's happening right now. So we can't pretend it's not. So I will try to stay still when I talk about hockey.
How many NHL players are using Zoom unaided, do you think?
Too many. I scroll through the Twitter, and every now and then you see these little, two people talking. Oh, and here's Trevor Linden talking to Daniel Sedin for old time's sake. First of all, I have no desire to watch that. And second of all, I bet it stinks. I bet it's worse than this.
Get to the answer here, please. What do you think? What's your prediction about the NHL and its future?
I don't think there's a big future. I think there's going to be the very dark ages. The point, just even what Mr. O'Reilly said about people coming and going into arenas, that's on top of everything else. The other thing is, and this is a little bit hockey unrelated, these sweaters are not cheap. When you want merchandise, and I know the teams make a lot of money from their merchandise. I'm collecting $2,000 a month. I've got 2 degrees. I've had several careers. I have no money. I'm not even buying my favorite whiskey anymore because I can't afford it. It is going to be a huge recovery. And if I'm sorry to say this, but if these millionaire owners think, oh, we're going to get it back going and people are going to spend and spend and spend, the only people who are going to be spending are those goddamn lawyers on Lake Joseph who have Leaf seasons tickets, and they tried giving away their seasons tickets to get on their blinking boat.
Okay, interesting points. And by the way, for our viewers and listeners, Lake Joseph is in the Muskoka. By the way, just to go back to Brian O'Reilly, he also talked about something that for me got into a bit of that area of economics, the technical stuff around the economy of the NHL, escrow. And so there are these salary caps. There's this pool of money. And so there are those super successful hockey teams like your own, like Toronto. There are the mid-level performers, and then there are the bottom feeders who need help. They need money each year from the NHL. And a chunk of that money to help those underperforming teams with not enough bums and seats and other revenue streams get money from players as well, from the players' pool. Boy, oh boy, that could be a huge problem when these underperforming teams are skidding sideways, which many are right now, have been. And now the players and their money, the money's at stake. We could see a strike, some kind of a walkout. So this is shading into my prediction. We have, sure, Gary Bettman just announced this week that come hell or high water, this season will finish. That that a plan will be announced soon. Forget about all this discussion about the entry level draft.
Oh, for God's sake!
This is what all of these hockey panelists and analysts and experts are talking about ad nauseum. And what's the expression about Nero fiddles while Rome burns? Too much. What about the greater stories? And I want to just ask you, if you had to put a panel together, who would you choose? And may I just jump forward and give you a couple of picks? I would love to hear from, okay, let's put together one of the royal families of hockey, the Botterill. Cal Botterill, the psychologist, the hockey shrink, his daughter Jennifer, who was a many-time gold medal Olympian. Her brother Jason is the manager of the Buffalo Sabres. So there's one group. How about Brian Burke, former general manager, hockey analyst, perhaps the next, that guy that, wears the funny suits. He could be the next that guy. And his son, Patrick, who started You Can Play, the group for LGBTQ people playing hockey. And he is the director of Patrick is the director of player safety. My God, the world is filled with ironies and metaphors and paradoxes. He's the director of player safety. Patrick is for the NHL. So there's a couple. I'd love to hear from them on the subject of the future of the NHL. I don't want to hear about the junior draft.
No, I think all of this conversation about, what's the draft? Oh, poor Montreal missed their draft. What about these poor players? Or what are they gonna be drafted at all? Like, do they get their big moment? Austin Matthews is spending his time in Arizona, jumping into his pool and showing it all over the Twitter. You know who
Stop, it's too much.
I know. Haley Wickenheiser.
Okay.
I would put her on, definitely. I would ask my favorite goalie, Ken Dryden, who's a thoughtful guy. And I think he's been interviewed before about it, but it wasn't really a great interview. But I'd love to have those two sit down together.
Who else?
Okay. Let me think about who else might be there.
How about Natalie Spooner and her brother Ryan Spooner? So Natalie played with the Canadian Women's Olympic team. Yeah. Ryan has had a cup of coffee or a bit more in the NHL. These are both smart people, but I don't know if they
yeah, we've got the Botterills already, right?
Got the Botterills.
Yeah.
Got Dr. Haley Wickenheiser, or soon to be Dr. Haley Wickenheiser.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good diverse group. I don't want to see any of the. I would love to have Dick Irvin on it. I would love Dick Irvin to be on it.
Okay. Why haven't we heard from these people? I keep checking the wires. I read the stories. I'm all over this, and I'm not hearing from these people about. We can get past speculation here, can't we? People talk knowledgeably about what this league faces.
I think in the past 10 years or so, and you and I have talked about this in the past, the way, I don't watch hockey as much as I used to. I used to watch it all the time. I get so sick of the play-by-play of it, I remember in between periods there used to be features and interesting things. It wasn't just pundits. Oh, O-Dog is talking about this, and hey, Coley Campbell, and Gretz and Slats. I don't know. And the play-by-play, the active stick, and he's thinking within himself and going to the neutral zone, and as much as Bob Cole forgets names and he was driving me crazy, when I heard him in the last time he called the play-by-play, he called it from the heart, right? It was a game. It wasn't technical. It wasn't, it's not a three-man press, but whatever they call all these technical things, the beauty, the Danny Gallivan, the Dan Kelly, the Bob Cole, there we go, bobblehead Cole.
Wow.
Yeah. I
Trish,
don't. Yes.
when you mentioned Danny Gallivan, the voice of your Montreal Canadiens for many, many years, he was one of my mentors. I have a friendship with Danny Gallivan. Listen, we need to move on.
Okay.
Vaughn, you think that there are dark days ahead for the NHL. I do too. We haven't even talked about what a second wave, a surge, a tertiary surge in the new coronavirus could mean for not just the NHL. And by the way, we haven't even talked about minor hockey, women's elite hockey, sledge hockey, international hockey. I just met a young woman who's from New Hamburg. She plays women's hockey in Sweden. She's from New Hamburg, Ontario, just east of Stratford, close to Kitchener-Waterloo. Haven't even got into that. So everything is on the table. Nothing is certain. We'll see what Gary Bettman says. Let's talk theater.
Okay then.